Hello everyone, welcome back to another tutorial, and today we're going to learn how to crochet this balaclava. I really love how this one turned out, and I have it in three different sizes. So this is a kid size from age 6 to age 12, and then I have another written pattern that is from 14 and for extra small, and then this one is now for an adult woman, and it's quite big and quite large. It can accommodate almost most size of heads, yeah, I guess so. So I'll have it in those three different sizes. If you'd like to learn how to do it in those three sizes, please check the written pattern that will be free on my blog. I'll leave it in the description box below. Also, you can support me by purchasing the ad-free printable version on my Etsy shop. For this tutorial, we're going to use ice yarns. This is a saver and its worsted weight 200 grams, 330 meters, and it recommends 5mm knitting needles. This is a medium 4 yarn, so you can substitute your yarn with any medium or worsted weight yarn. Then I'll use a 4.5mm crochet hook with a 4.0 crochet hook. Then you also need a pair of scissors. So to begin, you're going to start by making a slip knot, and then for an adult size, you're going to chain 61. So make your 61 chains, then we'll meet in row 1. So when you have the 61 chains, you're going to start for row 1, and for row 1 we're going to work a slip stitch. Skip the very first chain. Remember, the loop on your hook does not count as a stitch or does not count as a chain, so skip the first chain, and on this second chain you want to turn your work and work on these back bumps. So insert your hook in the back bump of the second chain, then slip stitch, and then slip stitch in the next chain, and continue placing one slip stitch until you have 20 slip stitches. So the 20 slip stitches are going to be our neck ribbing, and now for the body of our hood, you're going to start with a half double crochet in the next stitch, working back loop or the back bump only. So half double crochet in the next chain, then slip stitch in the next chain, back bump, half double crochet, next chain, slip stitch in the next chain, half double crochet in the next chain. So for the rest of this row, you're going to alternate. After half double crochet, work a slip stitch, after slip stitch, work a half double crochet, after half double crochet, slip stitch, and repeat that until you have only one stitch or one chain remaining. Remember, the second last chain is going to be a half double crochet stitch. So do that. After working your last half double crochet stitch in this second last stitch, we'll meet when working on the very last chain here. So I went ahead with my row. I'm here at the very last chain stitch, and after working your second last half double crochet, you're going to go in the very last stitch, and instead of placing a slip stitch, you're going to work a normal single crochet. Then chain 1 and turn your work to row 2. So for row 2, you're only going to work in the back loops only, and for the very first stitch, go in the back loop of that single crochet and work a slip stitch. Then in the half double crochet, you want to work half double crochet back loop only. So yarn over, go in the back loop of that next stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through the 3 loops, then slip stitch in the next stitch. And you want to make your slip stitches a bit loose, don't make them so tight. Half double crochet in the next stitch, back loop only, slip stitch, back loop only in the next stitch, and repeat this until you reach the very last half double crochet. After working in the very last half double crochet stitch, and you now remain with the 20 slip stitches here at the bottom, you're going to work slip stitch back loop only in each of those stitches. So go in the back loop and work a slip stitch, and do that to the end of your row. At the end of row 2, chain 1 and turn your work. Then for row 3, we're going to start by working slip stitch in the back loop only for the first 20 stitches. So go in the back loop and work a slip stitch and continue until you're through with the first 20 stitches. At the end of your 20 slip stitches, you're going to yarn over and work a half double crochet back loop only in the next half double crochet stitch, then slip stitch back loop only in the next slip stitch, half double back loop only in the next stitch, slip stitch back loop only in the next stitch. And you're going to repeat this until you have only one stitch remaining, our very last stitch, where we will work single crochet back loop only. After working your second last half double crochet back loop only, you're going to go in the very last stitch back loop and work a single crochet, then chain 1 and turn. And for the 4th row all the way to the 30th row, you're going to repeat row 2 and row 3, row 2 and row 3, ending your 30th row on the row 2 pattern. So this next row that you're going to work on, which will be slip stitch back loop only in the very first stitch, then half double back loop only, slip stitch back loop only, half double back loop only, until you reach your last half double here. After working your last half double back loop only, you're going to work slip stitch back loop only for the last 20 stitches, then turn and repeat the row 3 pattern. So you're going to repeat row 2 and row 3 all the way until your work measures 7 inches on this main part, or until you have 30 rows. I'll meet you when I have 30 rows, then we can proceed from there. So I went ahead with my rows, finished 30 rows in total, and for the next row we're going to work on this side and then come back and work on this other side. So for the next row you're going to turn your work, continue the pattern by working slip stitch back loop only for the first 20 stitches, and then half double back loop only, slip stitch back loop only until you reach the very last stitch here. So I'll meet you when you only have one stitch remaining, which is our very last slip stitch. When you reach the very last stitch, you're going to go in that last stitch, and instead of working a single crochet which you've been doing before, just work a slip stitch, because you're going to continue with this row on this side. Then turn. So our slip stitch was for this very last row, and for this next row just locate that last place and work a single crochet, then go in the next row, work a single crochet in the next row, and continue placing one single crochet at the end of each row until you reach the very end. Remember, we had 30 rows before we worked our very last row here to connect to the top area, so you should have 30 single crochet stitches along this part. At the end of your row you should chain 1, turn to row 32, and for row 32 we're going to continue with our main body pattern, which is slip stitch in the back loop only of the first stitch, then half double crochet back loop only in the next stitch, and continue alternating between slip stitch back loop only in the next stitch and half double crochet back loop only in the next stitch. So repeat that until you reach the end of our single crochet stitches, ending with a half double crochet back loop only. At the end of my single crochet stitches, I've ended with a half double crochet back loop only, because our next stitch is a slip stitch. So in that slip stitch, work a slip stitch back loop only, then continue half double crochet back loop only in the next half double crochet stitch, slip stitch back loop only in the next slip stitch, then continue with that pattern all the way until you reach your last half double crochet stitch here, then finish with slip stitch in the last 20 stitches. Do that and then we'll meet in the next row. At the end of row 32, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. And row 33, you're going to start with slip stitch, back loop only in the first 20 stitches. So do that, and then I'll meet you after you've worked your first 20 slip stitches. After your 20 slip stitches, you're going to have double crochet, back loop only in the next stitch, slip stitch, back loop only in the next stitch, half double, back loop only in the next stitch, and alternate half double and slip stitch all the way until you reach the very end, ending with a single crochet, back loop only. So continue after you've worked all the way. I'll meet you when you're working the very last stitch here. Then we'll turn to row 34. When you reach the end of your row, you're going to work a single crochet, back loop only in that very last stitch, then chain 1 and turn. And for row 34, start with a slip stitch, back loop only in the very first stitch, then half double, back loop only in the next stitch, slip stitch, back loop only in next stitch, half double, back loop only in the next stitch, and repeat, alternating between a half double and a slip stitch and a half double all the way until you reach the very last 20 stitches. Work slip stitch, back loop only for the last 20 stitches, and then when you're through with row 34, you're going to repeat row 32 and row 34 until you have 52 or 54 rows. So I'll continue with mine and then I'll show you where I've ended. If I have 52 rows, I'll let you know. If I added 2 more, I'll also let you know. So continue with that, and then I'll meet you in the next step when we're decreasing, or now when we're working on the other side on these short rows. At the end of row 52, you should have 30 rows for this side and then 22 rows for the middle area or the crown area. Now we're going to do decreases because you're going to replicate these 30 stitches on this other side. What you'll do, count 30 stitches from the very first stitch here because we added 30 stitches here at the crown area. So count 30 stitches, then mark your 30th stitch. It should be a half double crochet stitch. After marking your stitch, you're going to turn to row 53 and we're going to start now the decreases. So work slip stitches in the first 20 stitches, then continue the pattern half double, then half double, back loop only, then slip stitch, back loop only, alternating those until you reach this stitch right before your marker. So you're going to work a slip stitch in that last stitch, then we'll start our decreases. When you reach your stitch before marker, you're going to work that slip stitch, and then you're going to do a decrease in the stitch with marker and stitch after marker. So insert your hook in the back loop only of that stitch with marker, yarn over, pull through, then go in the next stitch, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, and then take that last loop and pull it through the 2 loops. So there is going to be a slip stitch 2 together. And now you can remove your marker and turn your work. Do not make a chain. Keep the very first slip stitch 2 together. You're going to skip that stitch, and then in the next slip stitch you're going to work a slip stitch, back loop only, then half double, back loop only, slip stitch, back loop only in the next slip stitch, half double crochet, back loop only in the next half double crochet stitch, and repeat that pattern until you reach the slip stitches here at the last. Work slip stitches, back loop only, then turn your work, and for the next row you're going to work slip stitch, back loop only the first 20 stitches, then work half double crochet, back loop only in the next half double, slip stitch, back loop only in the next slip stitch, and continue with the pattern until you reach the very last slip stitch. I'll meet you there when you're working on last stitch and then working the next decrease. After working the last half double crochet stitch, you only have 1 slip stitch remaining for that row. Go in the back loop only and work a slip stitch. And now we're going to go to the next half double crochet and the next slip stitch and work slip stitch 2 together. So skip to this next half double crochet stitch, the back loop only, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, Go in the next slip stitch, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, and take that last loop and pull it through these 2 loops. Then turn your work. You can either chain 1 or just skip to the next row. And for this row 56, you're going to go in the skip the very first slip stitch 2 together, and in the next stitch, which is a slip stitch, you're going to work a slip stitch back loop only. Then yarn over, half double, back loop only in the next, slip stitch, back loop only in the next, half double, crochet, back loop only in the next, and continue that pattern until you reach the last half double crochet, back loop only. Work on that, then proceed with the last 20 slip stitches, back loop only. Now when you're done with row 56, you're going to repeat row 55 and row 56 until you finish all the stitches, and you should have 82 rows in total. We had 30 for the first part, 22 for the middle part, and you're going to have 30 for the last part. So 30 plus 22 plus 30 is 82. When you have your 82 rows and you're through with the last stitch here, I'll meet you now when you're working, when you're adding the ribbing at the bottom just to accommodate the neck area. Then we can work the front ribbing, this one. So once you're through, we're going to add this middle part and then work on this ribbing. I went ahead with my rows and I'm here at my very last row. So after working the slip stitch, you're going to work slip stitch 2 together in the last 2 stitches. Then turn your work to the very last row. Skip those slip stitches, and on the next slip stitch, work a slip stitch. Then half double crochet in the next stitch, slip stitch in the next stitch, and continue with the pattern until you reach the very last half double crochet. Then proceed with slip stitches in the very last 20 stitches. After your row 82, this is how the hoodie looks like at this point. And when we open it up, this is going to wrap around the face area, and then this part is going to be around the neck. So you're going to add more rows here at the bottom ribbing. Just do what you've been doing. So chain 1 at the end of row 82, then turn to the next row, work slip stitch, back loop only all the way until you reach the 20th stitch. Do not go in the half double crochet stitches from this point. So after working 20 slip stitches, back loop only, chain 1, and turn to the next row, work slip stitch, back loop only to the end, and then repeat those 2 rows until this length here at the bottom can go over your head and around your neck without being too tight for you. So I'll go ahead, do that, then I'll tell you the number of rows that I've added, and we can go on in adding the ribbing here at the front opening. I went ahead and added 20 rows for this under the chin or the neck area. And then after your 20 rows, you can add more or reduce this number depending on how fitting it is around your neck. And then you can pull your yarn 3 times the length of this bottom area, because you're going to join it with a mattress stitch joining method. So when you have 3 times that length, you're going to cut your yarn, then pull it through that last stitch. For the mattress stitch join, you're going to take your darning needle, then insert your yarn, and now you're going to go in the opposite side of your seam, go in the very last stitch, pull it, insert your needle in that edge of your band, and then pull it through the back loop only of the first slip stitch on this row, and do the same for the opposite side. Then go in the first stitch, back loop only, insert your needle and push it through the back loop of the second stitch. Then go in the first stitch, back loop, push your needle through the second stitch back loop. And do this for a few rows before you pull it. And after going through a few stitches, you're going to pull your yarn and then continue with that mattress stitch. So do that all the way until you finish this seam, and then we'll meet when you're working our round here at along the face. Once you're done with your seam, you're going to weave in your tail inside the slip stitch rows. So I'll just insert the yarn and then leave it, do it at the end of this video. So for our next part, you're going to start on the very first slip stitch along this bottom area. You can start it anywhere you want. So you're going to work single crochet along this opening using a 3.75mm crochet hook. So go in that very first stitch, then insert your yarn, chain 1, then single crochet in the very same slip stitch. Then you're going to single crochet in the next each slip stitch until you reach the end, and at the end you should have 20 single crochet stitches because we had 20 slip stitch rows. Once you reach the end of your row, you're going to turn to this side and start with the next half double crochet stitch. So you're going to work a single crochet in the back loop only of that half double crochet. You can go through both loops, but I prefer working only in the back loop. Then go in the back loop only of the slip stitch, back loop only of the half double crochet, back loop only of the next slip stitch, back loop only of the next half double crochet, and repeat that all the way until you reach the end of your first part, and then I'll meet you in working here along the center. When you reach the center area, you're going to go in the very first row and work a single crochet, then single crochet in the next row, and continue placing one single crochet in each row until the end of this center part. So remember we had 22 rows, so you're going to have 22 single crochet along this area. Then turn to this other side, work single crochet back loop only on the very first slip stitch, then single crochet back loop only in the next half double crochet, and repeat working single crochet back loop only all the way until you reach the very last half double crochet here. Then we'll join it and then start the ribbing. So at the end of the single crochet stitches, you should have a total of 122 single crochet because we had 40 stitches along this row, 22 here at the top, then 40 on this other side, and 20 at the bottom. So when you reach the end, you're going to slip stitch in the very first single crochet stitch. Then for the ribbing, you're going to chain 12. So we're chaining 12 because you're going to fold it like this. So this is going to be the length of the ribbing. If you want a longer length, you're going to chain more. So after chaining 12, you're going to turn your work and work on the back bumps. So go in the second, skip the very first one, and in this second chain, back bump only, you're going to work a single crochet. Then single crochet, back bump only for the rest of the chains. So at the end of your single crochets, you're going to slip stitch in the next 2 stitches. then turn to row 2, and for row 2 we're going to go in the very last single crochet stitch, skip the slip stitches, then single crochet back loop only in those 11 stitches. At the end of row 2 you should have 11 single crochet stitches, chain 1 and turn to row 3. For row 3 we're going to go in the back loop only and work a single crochet, and repeat this for the next stitches, ending with 11 single crochet stitches in the back loop only. At the end of row 3 you're going to slip stitch in the next 2 stitches. So go in the next stitch, work a slip stitch, in the next stitch work a slip stitch, then turn to row 4, and row 4 you're going to repeat row 2 pattern, skip the slip stitches and work a single crochet back loop only in all those single crochet stitches. At the end of row 4 chain 1 and turn to row 5. So you're going to repeat row 3 and row 4 all the way around until you reach the very last stitch here. I went ahead with my single crochet back loop only rows, and I only have one stitch remaining here at the end, so I'll just go ahead and slip stitch in that last stitch. Once you're done, you're going to pull that loop all the way to the top so that one side is for this front and then the other side is for the back, and you want to add another loop so that it's twice the round of your front opening. Then you can cut your yarn and then pull it through that last loop. So we're going to use this yarn to sew this end here in this inside of our work. Go ahead and finish that seam. You can use any seaming method that you prefer. When you throw with your seam, you're going to fold your ribbing inside of your work, and then you're going to mark it with our stitch markers so that we can easily sew it along the rows. So just fold it and then mark. Doing this will help us have uniform. Doing this will help us have uniformity around our fold. And then once you're done, you're going to take the needle and now sew this ribbing inside of the work. Now once you're done with marking the points, you're going to take your needle and then go through this last ribbing row and then that row of single crochets along the opening. So you can see how our ribbing now looks like when folded, and you're going to go ahead with that sewing method, just sew it all the way around until you reach the very end. So I'll meet you when I'm done with my row, and then I'll show you the next step. Once you finish with your fold or folding the front ribbing, you can go ahead and weave in your tail inside of your work. and weave in any tail that might be in your project. And that will be all for the video. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the tutorial, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Until next time, stay safe. God bless you. Remember to share with your friends also if you enjoyed it. And until next time, stay safe. God bless you and bye.